the things that we talk about are not usually the things that we're talking about. The things that we're talking about are not usually the things that we're talking about. If I came to you and gave you a watch and said, here's a watch, like a little plastic watch, you're like, thank you. Oh yeah, I still got that watch. I'm glad you still have that. You know what that is, right? Yeah, it's a plastic watch. No, it's not a plastic watch. The watch is worth $3 million. That's why I told you it was valuable. You didn't ask me at the time how valuable it was. You just assumed it was a plastic watch. So I'm like, I'm glad you still have it. I'm glad that you really appreciate that because you can realize what it's worth and what the sacrifice was for that. You didn't realize what you had. Somebody else came along and saw it and was like, I know what that's worth. And then they picked it up. Sometimes people are like this. Sometimes you don't know what you've got. You don't realize that the person that you have in your life is exactly the person that you need. And you haven't considered it enough to realize that the thing that you need might just be the thing that you want. Or maybe that person got the watch and it wasn't what they thought it was and they said they sold it to a Goodwill and maybe you can go get it back. Who knows? Stranger things have happened. And if you lose sight of what it is that you're after, or if what you're after, you can't even know that you have it. So what I mean is this. I had a friend when I was in school who was telling me that he didn't like philosophers. He didn't like philosophy generally. One night he said, you guys make everything so complicated. You know, it's like if you ask him, oh, are you happy today? They'll ask you, well, what do you mean by happy? And I go, well, what do you mean? Like, give me like a real example. He goes, okay, this is at nighttime. He points out the window and he goes, okay, is it dark outside? And I looked outside and I asked him, what is the it to which you're referring? And he goes, exactly. It's a simple question. I go, well, everything is simple to simple minds. But everything, if you have a sophisticated mind, a complex mind, you understand that it's never, that the things that we talk about are not usually the things that we're talking about. The things that we're talking about are not usually the things that we're talking about. If you come to me and you tell me that you're having a bad day, the thing that you're telling me is the cause of the bad day, there might be something underlying it. Maybe you're aware of it, maybe you're not. But there's always an it. There's always an it. So for example, if you go into nursing, why? What are you going into nursing for? Oh, because it's good money. Have you ever met bad money before? Yeah, well, but you know what I mean. No, I really don't. I really don't, because, I mean, there are a lot of jobs I can think of that would not be good money. Like, for example, if I came to you and said, hey, I'm opening up a McDonald's and I want you to work the register for me, would you be willing to do that? What would your answer be?
For use handling, yes.
Yeah, some of you can say yes because you already do that. But one of the questions you might ask it, hopefully what your first answer is going to be, how much? Because if I just said like, oh yeah, minimum wage, well then no, I don't want to do that. If I said to you $1 million to work the register, I think you're really good at it, and I think you have a future in this. I think you'll be the best damn cashier that's ever existed. All right, I'll do it for $1 million. I won't do it for 1,000, but I'll do it for $1 million. So then what is the it? Why are you doing that? Are you doing that because you want to be the best damn cashier who's ever lived? No, you're doing it for the money. So then at the end of all of it, there are no other expectations. Oh, people are going to be rude. It's going to be high. It's going to be a lot, very busy. It's going to be chaotic. But when that check comes through every couple of weeks, you'll say, well, this is why I'm doing it though. So now it makes sense. This is the it to which we're referring. When you ask a nurse, why is it that you become a nurse? That might be the answer, because of the money. But then understand that if it's for the money, then it's not for the patients. So you're not going to be a very good nurse. You'll be a well-paid nurse. And you'll have all kinds of reasons, by the way, for why you're not putting your all into it. I'm tired, they don't pay me enough. You know, if you really break it down, how many hours I work and how much I put into it, I'm making way less per hour if it wasn't on salary. We come up with all kinds of reasons for why we're not doing the best job that we can. But if your it is you want to take care of people, you want to see people do well, all of that other stuff kind of goes out the window. Because then it's going to be the few times that you actually do make a positive impact in a patient's life, that makes it worthwhile. When the check comes through every few weeks, you'll be like, Oh yeah, that's right, and I get paid for this. Totally forgot. That's cool. Versus getting $1 million for this. All right, eye on the prize. Instead of the eye on the prize is the I'm able to help people and take care of people. Well then, that makes it worthwhile. And so what he's talking about here is the thing that gives our every move its meaning is always totally unknown to us. The thing that's unknown to us oftentimes is the it. What is the underlying thing that we're after in a job? Now we might, just like if you're, like with regards to the archetypes, if you're a hero, but you're pursuing the life of the caregiver, it's gonna be unsatisfying, no matter how successful you are at it. If you are doing it because you wanna make a bunch of money, and you're not making a bunch of money, but you're making the world a better place, making the world a better place won't matter to you. It's not the it, that's not what you're pursuing. You have to get the things that you're pursuing in alignment with your consciousness. You have to be aware, first off, of what it is that you're going for. Because even if you achieve it, you won't even know it, that you've achieved it. So for example, if I came to you and gave you a watch and said, here's a watch, like a little plastic watch, you're like, thank you. This is important. This means a lot to me. I hope you understand the value of me giving you this watch. Oh yeah, I understand the value of you giving me a plastic watch. And then you go home, maybe throw it in a drawer. I don't know, maybe you have it there for a while. And you're like, oh, why did you crazy bastard give me a watch? Maybe you give it to the Goodwill or something like that. And then I run into you a few years later. I'll be like, do you still have that watch? And you don't want to lie to me. But then again, you don't want to hurt my feelings. And so you let that one outweigh you and go, oh yeah, I still got that watch. I'm glad you still have that. You know what that is, right? Yeah, it's a plastic watch. No, it's not a plastic watch. It's a polymer watch. And I go on to explain to you that it's actually made of very sophisticated materials and the watch is worth $3 million. That's why I told you it was valuable. You didn't ask me at the time how valuable it was. You just assumed it was a plastic watch. And I'm like, I'm glad you still have it. I'm glad that you really appreciate that because you can realize what it's worth and what the sacrifice was for that. And you're like, well, great. You drive back to that Goodwill that you gave it to a few years earlier. You know, I happen to still have that watch. And someone said, no, actually someone came in and we were selling it for $1.50. Person seemed really happy to pay $1.50 for it. It was weird. He did say I'd pay 1,000,000 times that for some reason. But I don't know, I guess he knew what he got. You didn't realize what you had. Somebody else came along and saw it and was like, I know what that's worth. And then they picked it up. Sometimes people are like this. Sometimes you don't know what you've got. You don't realize that the person that you have in your life is exactly the person that you need. And you haven't considered it enough to realize that the thing that you need might just be the thing that you want. Maybe somebody else tossed it aside because they didn't see the value in it. Maybe it wasn't valuable to them, even if they knew. Maybe they'd been like, $3 million, it's a lot of work to sell it. Or maybe you're the person who says, it's not even worth selling. I hang on to it, I keep it because it's valuable. Maybe you're the person who values the plastic watch, I don't know. But the point is that people are like that. Opportunities are like this sometimes. The opportunity that you have, you might not even realize it's exactly what you want, exactly what you need. And so you toss it aside, and then it's not until years later that you look back on it and go, man, that was a great opportunity. I wish I hadn't blown it. That was a great person. I wish I hadn't gotten him out of my life. I wish that was a great fill in the blank. And of course, you can sit back and lament it for the rest of your life and wish that things had been different, but you've heard it before. At some point, we have to give up our hope for a better past. And we have to live the life that we presently have, and the best thing that we can do sometimes is just learn the lessons, make lemonade out of it. And that doesn't mean you always give up. Sometimes there are things that are worth pursuing. If that watch means that much to you, you could track it down probably, find it, and maybe you'd offer more for it, who knows. Or maybe that person got the watch and it wasn't what they thought it was and they said they sold it to a Goodwill and maybe you can go get it back. Who knows? Stranger things have happened. But we don't always know the things that we're pursuing. We don't know what's going to make us happy. We won't know until we actually have the thing. And then we might sit there and go, hey, this makes me happy. But you have to stop and see it for what it is. It takes gratitude. It takes appreciation. It takes a lot of things that, frankly, a lot of us struggle with. but you can't always know. There's something else I was going to talk about. It has to do with the dual nature of man and being a symbolic creature and all that, but so that's what it is I was going to talk about. Never got to it. There's always sixth period, though. So, questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques? Yeah.
Can we hear about it?
Yeah, I suppose. I'm still working it out. That's why. That's the whole reason I have this up here. I'm still working it out. So I've talked about how there are these two kind of aspects of you. There is the physical aspect of you, and that is obvious. In other words, you can see it. It's physical. It's in front of you. It's the thing that feels. And then, but there's also the secondary aspect, and this is the thing that really separates us from animals, which is the symbolic aspect. In other words, if I ask you, what is this? You're going to say, what do you say? It's a marker. Okay. All right. It's a marker. But what does it symbolize, though?
Blue.
Teaching. Blue. Drawing. And what, by the way, what associations do we make with blue?
Sky.
What's that?
Sky.
Sky.
Ocean.
Ocean.
Fish.
Sadness.
Fish.
Fish. All of those second and third tier things that you just said, that's the part of you that makes you human. What is this? It's a marker. Okay, but the symbolic thing, what does it represent? It represents teaching. It represents blue. Okay, but now, even off of blue, what does blue represent? Oh, sadness, ocean. It conjures up ideas of other things. So that's the part of us that's uniquely human. Your cats and dogs and apes don't do stuff like that. We're the only ones that actually do that. And so it starts to call into question then that the idea that so much of what we do is not based off of this, it's based off of this. Because it makes sense that if we're pursuing purely human activities, which only humans do, that we would be pursuing it in a way that's specific to us just being purely human. So we pursue things symbolically. So, for example, when you go get a job, why do you want a job? I gotta eat. Yeah, I suppose so. But symbolically, like I remember if it was in this class, but I was talking to one of my classes about Steve Harvey like a month ago or so. He was talking about some comedian scandal, whatever. And it's about joke stealing. And Steve Harvey said he knew about this and that he stole jokes himself. And somebody asked him, like, yeah, but how come you don't give credit? And he said, I don't. And then the person asked him, what about integrity? And Steve Harvey said, integrity doesn't feed my family. And people might hear that and be like, he's got a point. No, he doesn't have a point. Do you think that Steve Harvey's family is in danger of not eating? No. Steve Harvey's family is in danger of not having like a fifth vacation house, not having a brand new Mercedes to replace their otherwise pretty new Mercedes. It is not about feeding his family. It's about symbolically. So what symbolically is he after? What he's after is what all of those things symbolically represent. Status. It's not about just eating. It's about having status. So what he's essentially saying is, I don't have any integrity when it comes to achieving status. And that's an insult to anybody who hears him. Because what he just told you was, I can have status with you, and I can have your love, despite having no integrity. And many people, to our discredit, will nod and go, he's got a point. Now that isn't something that he has to tell us. It's something that just symbolically we understand at a deeper level. The jobs that you choose to do, and I really mean that, the jobs that you choose to do, you might say, well, I take any job I can get. Maybe, but that's a choice, isn't it? And that symbolically represents something about you. The job that you choose, like I oftentimes say, we should embody the jobs that we do. If any of you were to talk to me outside of here and you didn't know me, you didn't know what I did, I would hope at some point that within, in a 10-minute conversation or a 20-minute conversation, you'd probably say something like, you're a teacher, right? Or like you're a philosopher or something like that, right? Hopefully you'd figure it out. Just like if you were working in construction, hopefully I could, within a few minutes, be talking to you, go, you work like construction or something, right? Yeah, how'd you know? I just kind of knew. Because you carry things about you that you represent the thing, that you embody the thing that you do. In other words, the thing that you do for a living is you. And you go into that, hopefully, because it's you, not because it's contrary to who you are. So that when you go into the job, you don't have to be somebody different. You just are you. And then, of course, that means that you're able to not have to de-individuate when you're at work. You don't have to be someone different at work, someone different at home. Like we hear this, we don't hear them anymore under our new administration, but we used to always hear these things under our old administration. Be professional. And you know what being professional means? It means not saying what you really think. It means conforming to what one tyrant in a bad pantsuit tells you professionalism is. And it means conforming to those standards, not thinking for yourself, but instead living in fear because we're going to get fired. It's almost impossible to fire us as teachers. And so what will a teacher say? Well, I don't want to do it. Why? Because I don't want to get in trouble. You know how hard it is to get us in trouble? It's damn near impossible. The only way that you can fire a teacher is to convict us of a felony. That's it. The only way you can do it is we have to be convicted. A misdemeanor's fine, as we know from our teacher of the year a few years ago, who was drunk and on KUSI, but then still gets the word teacher of the year after that. It isn't a misdemeanor, it's a felony. And other than that, that's pretty much it. If you tell me, oh, Sion, you have to, they can't even tell us what to teach. If you guys all come in, I go, all this teaching stuff, too much work. Everybody with white shoes is an A, black shoes is a B, brown shoes is a C. And then you guys all went home and told your parents, dude, I got a D in class because I was wearing, I had chocolates. I had 102%, Scout's giving me a D. Even though, and then you sat me down for a meeting, and in the meeting with the superintendent, with God himself, and I said, yeah, I gave him a D because he's wearing chocolates. They could chastise me. That is an improper way to go about teaching. I hear you. So you're going to change the grade? No. In fact, they can't even ask us to change a grade. Legally. There's nothing that anyone can do to change a grade. I can give a grade based on anything in the world I want to do. We're the most protected group of individuals who have ever existed in the history of Earth in terms of our job security. And yet we complain. I don't make enough money. And then we also can't say what we really think because then we might get in trouble. Are we really going to get in trouble?
No.
In trouble means it means I get called to a meeting and I sit there. And then you're talk to someone for so long that everything just like narrows in. And all of a sudden the world looks really strange to you. And then all you hear is, and you kind of go back out. But you're not thinking about the meeting, you're thinking about that torta from earlier. How it could have been better, what was the bread like? What would happen if you got one of his brownies and put it in the torta? You had like a torta brownie. And all of a sudden you snap out of it because you hear, does that make sense? And you go, uh-huh. So we're good? Yeah, we're good. And you go back and you have no idea what you just agreed to. My point of it all is this. Are they really worried about getting in trouble? Or is that just their personality type? That's just who they are. And that's why they became a teacher. Because they like to go by rules and sit in boxes and squares. And that makes sense to them. That's how they were raised. That's how they were comfortable in school. And so they came back to it because that's where they're comfortable. So maybe the job symbolically represents them not seeking to change anything, not to do anything better, but just to be comfortable themselves. Maybe. The point, though, is that I'm getting at is just that there are these two aspects of us, and they're both equally important. This is the part of us that strives for eternity. This is the part of us that strives beyond just the flesh, which we recognize is dead and decaying and eventually is going to pass away. This is the stuff that we indulge in and that we hope in some way is going to make us more permanent, that we leave something behind. Yes, I may die, but maybe 30 years from now, one of you will be sitting there talking to your children, and you're going to say, I hear you, but you know what? Life is suffering. And you don't get to choose not to suffer, but as my math teacher, because you'll forget at that point, my math teacher used to say, you can choose what you're going to suffer for. And symbolically, I can look down from heaven, hopefully not look up, and say, that's right, life is suffering. Or worse yet, you might say, it's like I've always said, you don't know what you don't know. And people are like, oh wow, that's so wise. You came up with that? I came up with that. And I'll be up in heaven going, there's lightning to hit you with. Or maybe you do decide, or maybe you do have children and you recognize, even on your deathbed, as you're passing away from this life, wondering if there's a next, at least you're certain that your children and your grandchildren are passing through in this world, and hopefully will continuously do that. And symbolically, you get to remain around. And even genetically in your memories, as we're discovering. So, we're two aspects. And we don't always know what we're pursuing, because this is a lot of times unconscious. So you can stop me if you've heard this before. But until we make the unconscious conscious, we're going to do what we've always done. And we're just going to call it fate. It's going to be something like that. Maybe. If they ask the right questions. Others? All right. Happy Tuesday.
You too.
Ish?
Yeah.
Better? All right.